want to share another story, a post-Gimel Talmud story with the Igros, the Rebbe's letters that I was a witness to myself. I had many such stories. This one is one of my favorite. We had a young man, married man with a child, who moved to Buffalo, and his ambition was, his dream was to become a physical therapist. And he had to support his family, but he still was prepared to go for 3 years through this program. He enrolled in one of the local colleges, I think it was Damon College, and he didn't like the program for whatever reason, and he dropped out of it, and he applied to go to the University of Buffalo, which was a much better program, and it was too late. He applied too late, so they told him, if you apply next year, the odds are you'll get accepted. But then he thought to himself, you know what? I have to support a family. I'm going to, in addition to the 3 years, I'm going to have to wait a full year. So he decided to get a job. Meanwhile, he was a good salesman. And he came to me and he said, you know, I'm not a chassid, I'm not a follower of the Rebbe, but I have great respect. And I heard that chassidim consult the Rebbe in the Rebbe's letters. So he asked me if he could consult with the Rebbe whether he should even bother applying for that spot in the University of Buffalo for a physical therapist, or perhaps he should give it up and just do whatever else he can do to support his family. So I said, be my guest. And I told him where I have the books. I had then about 30 volumes of the Rebbe's letters. And I told him where to go, and he goes and he picks a volume randomly, and he opens it up randomly, and he shows me the letter that he opened up to. The letter is where the Rebbe is extolling the virtues of physical therapy to someone. And as far as I could tell, I looked in the 11,000 plus letters that the Rebbe that were published. That's the
no
only
other one focused
where
on
the Rebbe
PT.
speaks about physical therapy and praises it. Doesn't just mention it in passing. Well, he got his answer. The Rebbe is saying he should become a physical therapist. Meanwhile, he gets a job selling high-tech medical equipment, and he's doing very well. He was a real talented salesperson. And now it's already fast forward the next year, and he was accepted. He applied to get into University of Buffalo, and he was accepted. And a few days before he was supposed to start, I asked him, so you're starting physical therapy? He says, no, I'm not. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm doing very well. I'm selling this medical equipment, and I'm making a very good living. I'm not going to spend 3 years. I said,
he's got a bracha.
I remember saying, I think the Rebbe wants you to be a physical therapist, but I can't force him. I'm not imposing myself on him. So I meet him a week later. I said, how is your job going? And he says, oh, I'm in physical therapy. I'm in the program. He says, what do you mean? You told me last week that you're not going to the program. He says, yes, that something funny happened. The day before the program was to begin, I was laid off. Apparently the company wasn't doing very well.
Wasn't doing as well as
he was doing well, but the company was not. And they laid him off. And he, of course, took the program and he graduated, and he's now a very successful physical therapist in Baltimore, Maryland.
Baruch Hashem,
so that's an incredible story.
So the Rebbe's potency is still with us if we request it.
Yes.
And we need it.
But I don't want anyone to think that we're happy with the situation the way it is today. We want to see the Rebbe with our physical eyes, because we're down-to-earth human beings, and we need a Rebbe that we could relate to physically through seeing him, hearing him, and we believe that with the coming of Mashiach, that will happen, because we believe very strongly that in the Messianic age, those who are no longer here physically will return, and especially someone like the Rebbe will be here, will see him, and will be able to benefit from him directly, not having to use the indirect methods.
These vehicles.
The various vehicles.
All right, let it happen. Bring it on. Bring on the Geula.
Right. So that's something that we have to recognize, that it's a little bit of a paradox. On one hand, we tell ourselves and tell other people, the Rebbe is here and he's doing miracles, and he's guiding us no less, maybe a lot more than before. Whatever restrictions the Rebbe had, time restrictions, location restrictions, no longer exist, so the Rebbe could accomplish a lot more. But nevertheless, this is not what
It's not the ideal.
It's not the ideal.
you could say that with just about everything, that you really need the balance. You need both, in different stages. We can't be satisfied with this situation.
No, absolutely not.
Let's get on with the Geula.
Right now, do you have any other stories to tell? Could be before Gimel Tammuz.
I have before Gimel Tammuz stories. I have a story that I think I mentioned to you recently that has to do with you. That there was a point right after college that all I wanted to do was go and study in yeshiva for women. And really all I wanted to do was go to the Holy Land, to Eretz Israel. And there was a particular program, you might remember, a girl who used to work here, Esther Williamovsky.
Yes.
So Esther had gone to Tzfat, to Machon Alta, and she was thrilled with it and wrote me letters. In those days, there was no internet. And that's really all I wanted. I went to some event in Montreal. Again, Montreal's in our today's conversation. And a Rebbitzin taught me how to write a letter to the Rebbe. There's a certain heading. We have honorifics in the heading. And then to explain my situation, but that I want to go to Crown Heights to get married, or Crown Heights to go study, or the third choice, Israel to learn in Machon Alta in Tzfat. I didn't really want the first two. So we wrote this letter. This was the formal format. I followed her instructions, sent it in. For weeks and weeks, I didn't get any answers. And there was a Farbrengen. It was probably Yud Beis Tammuz, like around this time. And I went. It was at Main Street Chabad House in Buffalo. And you were there translating the Rebbe's talks simultaneously, or while the l'chaims were made, you were giving a summary. And at one of the talks, the Rebbe was speaking about people going from one yeshiva to another yeshiva, or from Israel to America, or America to Israel. And I asked you, did the Rebbe answer my question? And you said, no, he didn't. At that point, they were still making l'chaims. Between talks, the Rebbe would have people in the group make l'chaim, and he would nod to them and make l'chaim with them. So during that singing and that period of rest in between, I went home. Somebody had asked me if I could go home. It was nearby to get a bottle of vodka to continue with the party. So I went home, and my father, I asked him if I could take a bottle of vodka. He said, yes, but we were just in the safe, and your passport is no longer, it needs renewal. It's no longer valid, and you can't go to Israel. So I'm thinking, no wonder why I can't get a bracha. It would be illegal. I would have no access. So I was devastated. I ran back to Chabad House with that bottle of vodka. The next morning was a Monday. I quickly went to the post office as early as possible, wrote a tear-jerking, tear-soaked letter saying that I need this passport renewed right away, and I gave the amount of money and the photograph and all of my form filled out. That was on a Monday. Tuesday was an overnight. They must have received it. Wednesday, there was a ring at the doorbell, and I went to the doorbell. It was the post office giving me this overnight letter. I tore it open, and lo and behold, was my renewed passport. In Buffalo in those days, it would have taken weeks and weeks to get such a thing. You couldn't get it in Buffalo. You'd have to travel to Stamford, Connecticut, or New York City to get a passport. And lo and behold, there's my renewed passport. They obviously processed it the same day. Maybe my tear-jerked letter was sufficient. Maybe the Rebbe's working behind the scenes. I need to be a vessel. I need to fill out the form, give them the photograph, and pay for the passport. Well, wouldn't you know it, moments later, the phone rings, and it's the Lubavitcher Rebbe's office. Rabbi Groner, may he rest in peace, says, Rus Devorah, you have a blessing from the Rebbe to go to Machon Alta in Tzfat. So that was a before Gimel Tammuz, but I wasn't right in front of the Rebbe. Also, it just shows the power of the Rebbe from a distance, whether the distance is in time or the distance is in space. The Rebbe's present with us wherever we are.